Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Today is Thursday, January 18th, 2024. So let's talk a little bit about the price of Bitcoin and about the price of shares of Stronghold Digital Mining. So today I saw that intraday, our stock price dropped below $5 a share. I am not, I guess, a swing trader, nor am I a day trader, but I've been watching this stock, as I'm sure you have as well, somewhat long enough to sort of get a sense that, anything under $5 a share, absent there being some sort of news release that's specific to Stronghold Digital Mining that's not so good, right? Absent anything like that, anything under $5 a share, generally speaking, seems to be something of a buy signal. Now, that's not investment advice. It's just an observation. So the thinking is, hey, you get in under $5 a share, and then you inevitably dump the shares once they double, basically, right? They get up to like $10, $11 a share. We've seen this pattern repeat itself over and over and over again, right? Or at least I've certainly seen that happen more than once. Now, why exactly did shares of Stronghold Digital Mining take a bit of an intraday nosedive? And it wasn't really just, shares of Stronghold. It was really practically every other publicly traded Bitcoin mining company had the same sort of situation occur. I think an argument could be made that the reason why shares took a bit of a dive is because a voting member of the U.S. Federal Reserve Board of Governors, if that's the right specific title for this individual, evidently indicated to a news program or at some sort of event that from his perspective, rates would probably not start coming down until later in 2024. And I'm paraphrasing a bit there. And so understandably, right, markets were like, wait a minute, that means rates are going to stay high, so to speak high, right, until the end of the year, or at least until, sometime later in the second half of the year. And I think because of that, we saw a lot of, stock prices kind of take a bit of a tumble, including shares of Stronghold Digital Mining. I am not entirely convinced if that's going to be the case. And the reason I say that is because about a year ago, as of March of this coming year, basically 2024, March of 2024 will be the 1 year mark since a special lending facility got put into place by the U.S. Federal Reserve in an effort to bail out, in layman's terms, an illiquid banking sector here in the United States. And I'm not going to get into the reasons for why that might have, had to occur, but it occurred. And my understanding is that it's essentially a 1 year loan, that those loans are now coming back, or coming due rather, this March. I am hard-pressed to believe that banks that may have taken advantage of that lending facility are going to be in any position to pay the money back. So what is likely to happen is some sort of accommodation needs to be reached, maybe quantitative easing of some kind needs to take place. I don't know what the technical term will be for what transpires, but what will not transpire, or at least I would be shocked if it transpires, is that the U.S. Federal Reserve says, hey, you're not paying back the money, we're going to force a liquidation, we're going to force a bankruptcy, a lot of banks are going to go under. I don't foresee that happening. Hey, if you have any better insight as to that situation, please share that in the comments. I have not followed it very carefully, but I know just enough about the situation to get the very strong impression that by March of this year, March of 2024, we're going to be seeing what I think amounts to some type of accommodation, which can only be interpreted as probably suggesting that the Fed has to sort of turn the corner on rates, because far too many institutions, banking institutions, at least here in the United States, potentially around the world, are just not really in a position to sort of survive with rates remaining where they're at. Now, we can get into a broader discussion as to whether or not rates are historically high, because from my perspective, they're not. But when an economy becomes addicted, right, to cheap money, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult, as with, think of a person who gets addicted to chewing gum or whatever substance it might be, it's kind of hard to wean a human off of that. I think it's equally hard to wean an economy, or certainly the financial sector of an economy, off of interest rates that, were kept at zero for, what seemed like forever, right? Again, that's a bit beyond the scope of today's broadcast, but that is all by way of saying that I am not inherently concerned that rates are going to stay higher indefinitely. I'll be absolutely astonished if that can even happen. And that's not even saying anything of some sort of exigent circumstance arising, requiring the U.S. Federal Reserve to respond immediately with a rate cut or something like that. Okay, now as for the price of Bitcoin, why is the price of Bitcoin itself hovering like around $40,000 a coin? A little bit above there, I think. I don't know. And I think it's important that more people say, I don't know, instead of attempt to, invent some sort of rationale for why something may be happening or not happening. There is a lot of speculative money that certainly is attracted not just to Bitcoin mining companies, but to Bitcoin itself. And I think there's also an argument to be made that, we did have a bit of a run up in the price of Bitcoin. I can't imagine long-term hodlers are saying, okay, you know what? It ran up a bit. I unloaded my so-called bag of Bitcoin, and I'm just going to sit on the sidelines until it drops back down to $15,000 per coin again, because I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll see what happens with the price of Bitcoin. Again, I'm not really too concerned per se about the price of Bitcoin, and the reason why is because hash prices have been very, very, very attractive. And in the case of Stronghold Digital Mining, it's not just hash prices that have been very attractive. Grid prices lately have been awesome, like truly, truly awesome. I get more excited about grid price jumps than I probably should, considering I live within the PJM PP&L zone of the grid, which is serviced by the mine waste to energy facility called Panther Creek, which is of course part of Stronghold Digital Mining. But your electric bill might potentially go up a bit. I'm on a fixed rate plan, so I'm not going to see that type of sort of like spike affect me personally directly, at least not like right away. But certainly if we continue to see more and more energy assets come offline within the PJM grid, and we have those more traditional energy production assets be replaced by, say, wind and solar, which I think are phenomenal. I think they're very useful sources of electricity. But as our Chief Executive Officer, Greg Beard, has mentioned time and time and time again, wind and solar are intermittent sources of power, right? And so absent there being large grid-scale batteries strewn throughout the PJM network, I don't know that we're going to have a soft landing, so to speak, as it relates to completely transforming the PJM grid to, I guess, what will eventually amount to a wind and solar powered grid. I mean, maybe nuclear goes offline as well. Coal goes offline, natural gas goes offline. All you're left with maybe is wind and solar and batteries. I don't know. To me, that just seems like a really bizarre approach. I'm not an energy expert, but just looking at what we see even now on the grid and these price dislocations, the way they occur, I can't imagine that we will see that get any better before it potentially gets a lot worse. But worse is a relative term, because from the perspective of Stronghold Digital Mining, which is able to sell electricity into that grid environment, it really does present some phenomenal opportunities to not only support the grid, but to generate some incredibly, truly incredible revenue. So I'm excited and happy to see that. I'm happy to see hash prices are doing well, irrespective of the price of Bitcoin. And I'm optimistic that we will see in probably the first part of 2024 here, some movement on the part of the US Federal Reserve to start lowering rates. I'm not saying that's entirely a good thing, overall, but it's kind of a reality thing. I just don't know how you otherwise maneuver going forward if rates stay this high into the distant future, just because of a lot of structural issues that are beyond the scope of this broadcast, that I think more and more will become, it's just very difficult, I think, politically and just economically. I think it's going to be very, very hard for the Fed to stay the course with rates being where they're at. Okay. With all of that said, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again tomorrow.